can admit you. Okay. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Friday. Today we have a marvelous artist from a great part of the world. I visited and I just absolutely loved it. So we have Gillian from South Africa, from Johannesburg, and she's been showing us her, I think the bird in the back. No, not that one, but her beautiful bird she did with opera pink. It was just wonderful. Welcome, Gillian.
Hi, nice. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you. And so we're going to see some of Jillian's artwork. And Jillian, before we start, do you want to take questions as you paint, or do you want them at the end? What would you
No,
prefer?
that's fine. That's you know what? Let's do it as I paint. That's absolutely fine.
Okay,
Okay,
fantastic.
yeah, definitely.
All right. So we'll just quickly share some slides, Gillian, to let our guests see some of your artworks, and more importantly, would like them to connect with you as soon as possible. So, friends, meet Gillian and do follow her on Instagram. Look for Gillian Cook Studio. The next couple of slides, Julian, are your artworks, and our community here, of course, would love to hear something, a line or two about each of the artworks here. We begin with this piece.
Okay, so this was a pet portrait I did. One of my husband's friends lost this little one, and so I captured this pup for him, and it was just so much fun doing the dappled coat and that gorgeous blue eye. I love painting animals. I love anything, that sort of looks you in the eye and speaks to you. So I do enjoy animals, birds, and things like that. And what I really liked playing with here was the muted blues. I basically mainly used French ultramarine and Payne's gray, but also sort of a range of brown colors to tone down those blues to get the shadows. So that's yeah, another pet portrait, a nice pit bull. I love painting white. I'm painting a white flower for you tonight. I really enjoy painting white objects and animals and flowers because there are so many colors that you can use. So yeah, this is an interesting one because people either love or hate pigeons. I discovered with this painting. So I find them really beautiful. So I did have to paint them. And yeah, I think what's interesting when you paint something this portrait, sorry, when you're painting something that's metallic or shiny, your shadows are really important because that's what makes the colors shine. Okay. Hmm. This was there's a portrait challenge on Instagram. I'm drawing a blank. I think it's the JY portrait challenge, and this was one of the ladies. She just had such a serene look on her face. Had to do it. Ah, this little guy. He was a guy I found on Pixabay and he was just so cute. And I wanted to try the challenge of painting freckles, so that's why I took on this little guy. It's just a practice one that I did. Ah, also purple hair. She was one of the early portraits that I did actually. I just liked her and I liked her purple hair. So that's why I did her. Sort of like the red contrasting with her green eyes. Lilies. This was a big painting. This was 70 by 50. And yeah, again, it was the challenge. My favorite part is the reflections in the water. That was like a little mini abstract painting. Um, I like the little details like that. I like pattern very, very much. You can see it on the leaves, and in the water. Very interested in pattern. Sure.
And
Okay.
that's the last piece.
All right. Wonderful.
Okay. So, Jillian, you can start
Okay.
anytime you like.
Sorry.
You can start anytime you like.
Okay, so I'm going to switch my camera. So it might go blank for a few seconds. Don't panic, anyone. It's coming. Okay, it's coming back. Oh, for goodness sake. Give me 1 second. Sorry. There we go. All right. Perfect. So, oh, glitch. I'll be back now. Sorry about that. 2 seconds. There we go. Okay, so I chose this because, again, I wanted to demonstrate a couple of things with this painting. The one is about painting shadows. So when you are painting shadows, you want to make sure that your colors are slightly more desaturated than they would be in areas that are in light. So a couple of these petals I've nearly done. So I'm going to just demonstrate how I go about building up my layers. Before I start painting, I always swatch because it's my favorite thing in the world to do. So I create swatch sheets like this so I can figure out the colors that I want to use. So this is just my final one. I probably did another 2 sheets. This is my therapy as much as it is just trying to figure out colors. And a good thing about swatching is that once you've done it, you've got these color recipes for life. So the next time you need something like this color and then you've got the lighter values here as well, then you've already got those color recipes and you don't have to swatch as much as you might when you begin. So I kind of have built up a lovely library of swatches. So before I start, I don't launch into painting. I first of all, I do my swatches like this. Okay, and I like my cobalts. I love opera rose. I like colors that are non-staining because I'm very heavy-handed. Unfortunately, I'm in therapy for that. But I tend to be a little bit heavy-handed. So I like colors that don't stain so that I can lift them. Yeah, all right. So these two darker petals I've taken to the final stage of the painting. And I wanted these colors. These are very dull. They're not terribly dull, but they're duller than the colors that I will use here because they are in shadow. So to desaturate my colors, for sort of color like this, for example, I'll get my lavender, which is one of my staples. I love lavender, and tone it down with some lemon yellow, just to take that brightness, the saturation off. Okay, so how I work in very pale layers and I build up very slowly. Again, because if you know you're heavy-handed, it's a good way to work. I tend to get overexcited and in sort of in the zone, and then I just go for it. So I find it better to just build up slowly. So I'm going to work on this one now. Let me just grab my image once. Okay, so let me just get my picture up. All right, so I've mixed my colors here. So I've got all my colors that are mixed here. So I tend to keep them separately. So these are my sort of blues and pinks. And so here I've got a cobalt blue violet. I've got lavender. This lavender is in every single painting I do. I use it for everything. I've got cobalt blue, opera rose, and I've got quinacridone rose here. Then these are my yellows. I've got lemon yellow and new gamboge. I love it. It's such a delicious warm orange. I've got permanent orange here. And then this is another one of my go-tos. I use it a lot in portraits. It's transparent pyro orange. I absolutely love it. And then I've mixed a little bit of cobalt blue in to make a darker brown here, which you can see I've used down here. Again, just desaturating the orange because it's in shadow. And then here I have got, which I'm just going to give a stir. They've all separated. I mixed them earlier. So this is important when you're mixing your colors, because they do separate out, to just give them a nice stir so that everything sort of gets mixed up together again. You can see here that this is a cobalt and a brown. Give that a good stir. This one. So this palette, I've put all my desaturated colors in so that they don't get mixed up with my colors that I want to use lovely and bright. It's amazing when you stir it up how those colors change up. So make sure that you do that if your colors have been sitting for a little while. And then that one, so that one's good to go. So you can see this is a slightly more, but also again, very, very pale washes because it's much better to build up and not go too dark. Okay, so I've got my basic colors in here and I'm going to start building up over here. So let's go in there. You switch. I'm using Rosemary and Co brushes are my favorite brushes. These I love the animation set for botanicals. They've got a fantastic tip on them and they hold a lot of paint. And then I also like the Michael Klein brushes by Rosemary and Co. And then this is my baby. This is the Rosemary and Co Eradicator brush. It's great for pulling out thin lines and for lifting paint if you have laid your paint on too thick. So it comes in two different sizes. There we go. Those are the other two sizes that I have. Okay, so let's get going.
May I
So,
ask a question?
of course.
Your background. What did you use
Hmm.
for your background?
Okay, so for this is just a study. So it's three layers of, I wanted a bit of granulation. So it's lunar violet and indigo. Okay, so I built it up and it took three layers of paint to get it this dark because it can be very tricky to get a dark background. So
Wow, that's
yeah,
amazing.
you've got to be really patient and it's so important to let those layers dry completely between because if your layers you do your first layer and if it isn't because I call it fake dry when it feels almost dry and it looks dry frequently it's actually not. So your paper needs to be sitting flat. Again, any buckling has to have died down completely. And once it's bone dry, you put on another layer. Same again, another layer. So this is probably the darkest that I wanted it, but it did take a lot of layering to get it this dark. Okay. So let's go. So we need clean water for this. So I've got my lighter layer in here, okay? So I want to build up my color over here in sort of a shape that goes sort of across there in a band. But if I only wet that area, I'm going to get a hard line. So you want to wet well beyond where you're going to paint. All right. So you've got to make sure your water is very clean. And I'm just going to work here. And again, I'm wetting, even though all of this is going to stay white, I'm still wetting it. Okay. And I use a larger brush to wet the area. And I'm going to use I'm going to use lavender here. Okay. So I'm going to bring that in here. Start bringing that in. Can you see that this color is very pale? Can you see the color? Just checking. Because it is quite pale. If you can't, just build it up a little bit. I'm
A
going to
little
put
hard to see.
can you see it or not really? I can
Uh,
go darker. So I'm putting in
that one,
some cobalt blue now.
you can see that. Yes.
Okay. So do you see how I've got a soft edge because I went beyond where I wanted to paint? So I'm going to pull that down there and across here in this shape using a very small brush. Okay. I'm just building, building, building. I've got sort of more greeny color that I want to bring in here. So just switching my brushes. So I'm just wetting a little bit more so that I get a soft edge.
Your picture's a little out of focus.
Is it? Is that better? How's that?
Yeah, I guess that's good.
Okay. So I'm going to go in a little bit darker, and I'm just building it up very, very, very slowly. And then here I've got an area that's actually got a hard line. It comes across there nice and softly, like that. And when you're painting something that's white, play with your colors. You know, that's the beauty of a painting rather than a photograph. So I'm going to drop in a little bit of this more greeny blue down here. Just a little bit of that. Just soften that out, just to add, because that's going to go very nicely into my yellow down here. Let's just soften that. There we go. So you just want to, basically we've got the light there. So I'm going to just create, cobalt blue is really lovely for creating soft edges because it is non-staining. So it's one of the reasons if I'm mixing a purple for a botanical, I'm going to be using a cobalt blue because it's got that lovely, you can soften it so nicely. Okay. I'm building that in there. Okay, so I want to go a little bit darker into this shadow on this side here. Now, shadow needs to be, it's never going to be as saturated. So I'm going to bring in a slightly, this is a desaturated. So this is my cobalt blue with a little bit actually of Prussian green in here and a little bit of quinacridone rose. Just pull that there, switch to a smaller brush. So I've generally got 2 or 3 brushes in my hand at any one time. Okay. So this greeny color, let me just pick up a bit more. This is a combination of lavender and lemon yellow. And it gives you this beautiful green. I love that combination. Take a little bit. Let's just soften that edge into there. Pull that down there.
No audio. What? Nowhere else.
Sorry?
No, that was someone's mic is on. It's good now,
Oh,
Gillian.
okay. All right. So I'm going to let this, I want to soften this edge here. So when I'm
Gillian,
softening, yes,
I am so sorry to interrupt you. Um, is there any way we can see a reference photo?
of course, of course, of course, of course. So here we go. So there we go.
Oh,
Sorry,
awesome.
there's a light above me. Okay.
Beautiful.
All right.
Thank you.
No problem at all. Okay, so let's come back up to here. So I'm just going to leave that. I just want to soften that a bit more up here. So when I'm softening, I like to just take the tip of my brush into it. Just make sure it's not too wet, otherwise you're going to get the dreaded cauliflower or bloom. So just soften it out there like that. Okay. So now
Okay, so oh,
Sorry, someone's mic is on.
I'm going to go into there. I want to put in this lovely bright lavender first. Okay, and it comes all the way down to there. And then I'm going to switch. So now I'm going to put in some quinacridone rose. Just, it's got a lovely pink tip here. just there. And that's going to blend beautifully into that purple there, like that. Just pull that into there. Let's just soften that nicely. Okay, so now I'm going into this color here is going to be, this is my cobalt blue with a little bit of transparent pyrrole orange because I want to desaturate this because it is in the shadow. And then that actually comes down there like that. Like so. Just want to soften there. Do you see how easy it is to soften your edges with the cobalt blue? Go like that. Okay, and then I need to darken it there. So I'm not going to fiddle too much there. I'm going to let that layer dry, and now I'm going to move on to this outside section here. So I want to leave this completely white. Okay. So when you're painting flowers, these white edges, whoopsie daisy. These white edges are really important. These little edges of your petals, because what they do is they just create that beautiful depth. Because there's more than two sides to anything. They've got a top, a bottom, and the sides. So when you are painting flowers, just remember, look for those white edges. So this one's got a crease here that sort of starts here. Pull that through there. Okay, and now it starts turning into a more greeny color. So it's heading towards the yellow. So I've made sure that all the colors that I need are the same value for the layer that I'm working on. So this color is the same value as that blue. Okay, and then let's go in with some lovely bright lemon yellow. I love lemon yellow because you can get such intensity with it, but you can also get such a beautiful soft light. I often find that lemon yellow is almost brighter than white sometimes. There we go. And I'm just going to pull that up into there. All right. There we go. So now I'm going to come onto this. I'm going to leave this to dry completely. Because if I was going to paint over this now, then I'm just going to lift the colors underneath. And I obviously don't want to do that. So I'm going to start, there's a shadow here. So I'm just going to, sometimes if you struggle with smooth glazes or washes, it's often good to work wet on wet, even when you don't necessarily, like if I'm doing an area, if I had to paint a leaf and I had to do a base color on it, a wash, I will do wet on wet, even though it's just one color, because it just helps you get a really smooth layer of paint on there. And remember that if your paint is looking streaky, if it's going down and it looks streaky, your brush is probably too small. So switch up your brush. It's a little tip for getting your smooth wash. It's so dry. We're in the middle of winter here and it's so dry that this paper just doesn't stay wet. Pull that down to there. And that actually comes all the way down to there. So I'm going to just come in there like that.
A lot of lovely comments coming from Facebook. Let's see. Christine said, so beautifully soft. Yvette said, beautiful. Jose said, very beautiful, Jillian. Let's see. So many, just so many great comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Always lovely. Okay, so even though I know that this needs to be darker, I'm just going cautiously. I started as an oil painter, and with oil paint, you really push your brush onto that canvas, and there's quite a physical thing. So adjusting to watercolor, I think that's why I tend to be a little bit heavy-handed. So I purposefully work with the lighter layers and just build up. Okay, so now I'm going into this is a combination of new gamboge and lemon yellow. It's got a beautiful warmth to it.
Gillian, is your paper black or did you wash that black?
This is a combination. It's 3 layers of lunar violet for the granulation and indigo. And
Beautiful.
it's a lot of layers and a lot of paint, but it needs to be built up slowly. It took me a long time to sort of figure out how to get dark backgrounds. So yeah, and I love that combination. The indigo kind of took over. I'd wanted because of there's so much yellow and purple or violet is the complementary to yellow. I had wanted it to be more purpley, but I do like this. But it's just a case of being patient. One layer, let it dry, another layer, and just keep building it up. And your paint needs to be really thick and creamy to get really dark colors. Okay, so I've mixed a combination. So this is permanent orange with a little bit of cobalt in it. Just building. Just going to wet up here again because I want to build this up to be darker. And I'm taking a little bit of this up to there like that. Okay. Method to my madness. Okay.
Do
I
you have
want,
a sketch? Is like where you're putting the shadow shapes, do you have kind of a sketch as a guide, or are you doing all this
yeah.
freehand?
No, I draw where there's a big value change. I always draw the shape, but I've used a putty eraser to lighten it. Um, so there are very fine lines that are there.
That's
So
fun.
I've got my sort of, you probably can't see them, but there are some shapes that are drawn in there. So now I'm dropping in, I call this technique charging. So on top of that sort of dull yellowy green, I'm dropping in lavender. And it just creates this gorgeous desaturated greeny deliciousness. Okay, all right. So I'm just going to, let's just blend that in a little bit. Here we go. Just soften that. Okay, I'm just going to let that sit now. All right. So I need to put lemon yellow up to here because this is a fold. So this petal is folding over. Obviously, I need to wait for this to dry before I come and work in here. But I can see now that this actually needs to be darker. So I'm going to quickly go in there. Oh, let me wet it first.
Sylvia Thorne said, reserving the white of the paper creates the most amazing glow. Your whites are crisp and delicious.
Thank you. Yeah, one of the most important tips I can give a beginner painter and any painter, in fact, is preserving your whites and your lights because, once they're gone, it's the most awful feeling and you just can't get them back. So take your time with your layering. It's a wonderful process. Don't be in a rush. Don't tr ever try and paint a painting in one layer. And I think that's what it took me a long time to realize that because I'm self-taught at watercolor. And it took me a while to realize that you don't do it all in one layer. You have to build it up. And the joy of watercolor is that you've got the transparency of it. So, you build it up and that those beautiful colors just glow through each other. I'm a big fan of glazing. So I'm just going to do that. Now I'm going to come in with some transparent pyrrole orange to really amp up that orange. Oh, I'm not picking up enough. One sec. There we go. I'm going to switch to a smaller brush. So this transparent pyrrole orange just glows. It's beautiful. Okay, there we go. In terms of values with your painting, the question you want to be always asking yourself and assessing as you go, oopsie daisy, is this area lighter or darker than the area next to it? And as you're painting, you're constantly reassessing. I don't think you're finished until the end of the painting and everything is done. So I would normally work the entire painting, first layer very pale, build up, build up. But for the demo, I wanted to show some of the petals already finished. Okay, so let's come up. We've got some soft shadows up here. So these are, I get my cobalt blue mix. Okay. So where am I there? Just switch to a smaller brush. I'm always safer with a smaller brush. So I'm going to pull that all the way up to there. It kind of disappears into that edge. And then it comes down here. And then here we've got a hard edge. So considering your edges, soft, hard, how they fade out is really important. So here I've got, and I want to shape like that, disappearing into sort of nothingness. When you're doing a line, try not to do little short strokes. Try and follow that curve all the way through. Just going to soften there. And again, lavender also gives you beautiful soft edges, which I love. So I'm just going to soften from the outside here, just like that. Okay. Just drop it in there like that. So now I'm just dropping along that line because I don't want to have that very thin line that's appeared there. Okay, and that goes there. I'm going to just leave that there. I'm going to pick up some cobalt because why not? Cobalt and lavender are beautiful together. Cobalt blue, I mean. Okay, and I'm just going to wet here and just come into that. Just soften that edge there, like that. You see how you can just soften these edges? And then if you're lifting paint, you can always just come back in, and then this kind of fades out here. You've got a very hard edge here, and this is going to need to fade out. And it fades out into a sort of turquoisey green color, which I'm now going to put in. There we go. Okay. Now I need to really fade that out. So I'm just going to pull down like that, just like that. Just keep cleaning make sure you've always got one jar of water that is completely clean. Remembering to keep it clean is another story. Okay. So I need to just let this soften a little bit. And I'm just going to let that fade out like that into nothingness. Okay. Now there is two areas here. The petal sort of folds here. So I'm actually going to do the darker one first, the darker shadow. And again, it's a shadow. So I'm using a more desaturated color. I'm using cobalt blue and transparent pyrrole orange. Okay. I want that. And there's a white edge there, so I want to make sure that I preserve it. Don't be afraid of masking fluid. If you struggle, if your brush controls, if it's not the best, or you mastering it, use that masking fluid. Okay, so we've got a definite shape there, and it comes down and disappears. Okay, there like that. Okay. Then this actually fades into a yellow. There's a lovely yellow area here. So I'm going to put that in. And again, because it's white, you've got to be so, so, so careful. So the area that I want to paint is here. So it comes from here and it comes all the way down here. So I wet well beyond it with clean water. I'm just staying away from this edge because it's still wet. Okay.
Gillian, when you have a moment, can we see your reference photo again? And then also, do you have your initial sketch? Sandra's asking.
Oh, my initial sketch. It is. I can grab it quickly. It's right in front of me. So that's our reference image there.
Can you hold it for a second? I'll screenshot it and put it in the comments.
Sure. Thank you.
Yep.
Done? Got it?
Got it.
Okay, great. Let me just grab my sketch. I did a sketch. I do lots of sketches. I think it's important. I'm just going to grab it right here. So here you get to see how heavy-handed I am. It's very bright, but this was a slightly different one that I did, the initial one. And then I was just figuring things out. It's not finished at all, but I was just figuring out. I do it to figure out colors. Um, I think there's a definite, we want to go and we want to create a painting, a finished painting that is the best we can do. But it's so important to do sketches. And often you'll find your sketch painting is really good because you're not putting the pressure on yourself to produce this amazing piece of work. So this is where with my sketches, it's where I play. I really went really bright with the purples and I had loads of fun. And as I say, it's not finished, but there are areas that I really liked this. I liked this area here, for example. And I liked the shadow. Where I went wrong is I did go way too dark. But yeah, I was also experimenting with different greens here. So that was Prussian green, and there was phthalo blue, phthalo turquoise, and indigo. Again, I love indigo. If you're looking for dark colors, indigo is really great for adding a bit of punchy darkness in there. Okay, so yeah, that was my first sketch. I've done a couple of sketches of these, and I'll often do 3 or 4 sketches before I'm finished and I'm happy. So this has dried a little bit wonky here, so I'm just going to give that again with colors that are non-staining or low staining. They're brilliant for getting, oh, I've lost my picture. There we go. They're really great for getting those edges soft. And if your paint has dried, for example, then do you see it just lifts up so nicely. Just want to come back in and punch up that section there. And it sort of comes there, tissue. So here that comes all the way to there. Okay. There we go. And I want to, this white edge here is important. So I'm making sure that my brush is damp and clean, and I'm just going to soften that edge. Just want the tip of your brush to go into that, and then just pull it. Oh, too much water. See? This brush is probably too big. There we go. I'm going to keep wetting here. I don't know what everyone calls them, but a bloom, a watercolor bloom. Some people hate them. I quite like them. Um, I'm getting an edge there, so I just want to soften it out. Take it all the way up there. Just keep an eye. So I need to carry this across, but I'm going to put the yellow in first because it's a lighter color. And I would rather go a bit further with the lighter yellow than take the purple down too much, because that very pale lemon yellow is really important to get this. There's a lovely glow coming through here. So, oopsie, there we go. Okay. Now I'm just going to get my lemon yellow, and it's very, very pale. I'd rather do 3 or 4 layers than go in too dark of light. There we go. And you want to have a nice straight edge there. Okay, like that. Let's just soften that back up again. Like that. So now I'm going to go in with my purple, and I'm going to just pull it across. Up a little bit more. So then we've got that lovely soft edge. When you've got two colors that are very, very different from each other, I mean, these two are on the opposite side of the color wheel. So mixing them together can be tricky because you can end up with a gray. So experiment with creating a blend with those colors, because you can get, for example, with the lavender and the lemon yellow, you can get a really beautiful range of greens, which is a lovely way. And sometimes if you're struggling to blend them from purple to into yellow, then mix a separate color. Mix that. What did I do with it? There we go. So I'm going to put a slight green in here because that creates a much easier transition. So there we go, and that comes down in a point to there. Made a bit of a hash there. Nothing we can't fix. Okay, so let's get this shape right. Always looking for shapes in your painting. So this is going, sorry?
Gillian, you have the most beautiful comment in the Zoom chat
Tell me.
place. Beautiful compliment for a flower painting.
There we go. Do you see I'm just softly creating that blend between them? Very, very, very gently. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Okay. And I'm just gonna, so now this is very wet. Okay, so I'm getting a very unsmooth glaze here. Okay, so what you want to do in that case is Just lay it down. And the reason I'm getting a very dodgy, because it is dodgy, the reason I'm getting this dodgy glaze here is because I'm fiddling too much. Fiddle, fiddle, mess up. So let it go now. So I'm going to just let that sit now. That needs to dry. Okay, so I've got that. I'm just going to put in a little bit more yellow here. There we go. Let's amp up that yellow ever so slightly. Lemon yellow is just so lovely. I'm just going to pull it all the way across to there. You see how if you mix your lemon yellow, because the lavender is so blue, it's such a blue leaning color. When you mix it with the lemon yellow, you get a really beautiful green. So I'm going to leave this area to sit now, and I'm going to come down here. Okay, so here, let me check that this is dry. So never touch your painting with your fingers. I never put hand cream on when I'm going to be painting, but your fingers will produce oil. So I promise you, it's like having like someone's rubbed a wax candle on if you're wearing hand cream and then you're touching. So if you want to make sure you're not using hand cream, but also you can just feel the back with this part of your knuckle. If it's cool, your painting is not dry. It needs to be room temperature. It's a good way to check because you get that fake dry, which is a problem, and you think, oh, my painting is dry, I can paint on top, and it isn't. So I'm just going to come back in here. I just want to amp that up a little bit. So I'm just dropping in this. I'm just going to let them play together. It's a beauty of watercolors. You can just layer in your colors. So I'm putting lilac on top of this new gamboge and lilac combination. Just smush, smush. And I'm getting a beautiful range of desaturated colors in there for that shadow. It's a little bit dark, as I said, heavy-handed. I'm just going to lift it out a little bit. So how I'm doing this, it's just a clean brush. Okay, but that blue's remained. It's just a clean brush. Also, your eradicator brush is your best friend if you've gone too dark. Where is it? There we go. So you wet it. So how you do it, you wet it and you take the excess water off and it just lifts so beautifully. Look at that. So I actually use it as a technique. So what you can do is you can lay in your paint and it stains the paper to a degree, depending on how staining it is. But if you've got a couple of layers, and then you can just pull it out gently, and then you get these lovely, lovely gradients there. Okay, so that's my curve there. Let's put some lemon yellow on that outside bit here. So I need lemon yellow to fade into white. Okay, so I'm just going to wet it well beyond where I want to paint because I don't want to line. Okay. And I'm going to go in with my pure lemon yellow there, just for that edge there. Oh, it's so dry. My paper is just, the water's just evaporating. Okay. Just soften that out. Now I can see that I need to go back in here. So it's a constant readjusting. This, I'm going to let that dry actually. Just going to soften there a little bit. Just bring in that darker color. But I don't want to paint next to it while it's wet because it's just going to disappear in there. So now I'm going to come in here. So I'm just going to quickly dry this with my dryer Give me 1 second, it shouldn't make too much noise. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now I want to glaze across this with my lemon yellow because I want that glow in the lemon yellow glow to be in there. So when you are wetting on top of a previous layer, make sure you're pressing very lightly, very, very, very lightly, because you don't want to lift that color. As I said, I tend to use non-staining colors, so they do lift quite easily. So you've got to be very gentle. Okay, so now I'm going to go in with this really bright lemon yellow, and I'm going to go right across that.
Just wanted to read you a comment from Patty. They said, such an amazing skill of the layers, transparency to create luminosity. Thank you for this.
Thank you. It's the paint. It's, you can just rely on it to do what it's supposed to do. So if it is a non-staining paint, you can work and be sure that it's not going to, lifting it is going to be a whole lot easier. Thank you. Okay, so there I've got that glaze in there. I'm just going to go darker here. And I'm going to exaggerate a little bit because I can. So permanent orange I'm going to use permanent orange now. It's a lovely, lovely, lovely orange. It's got a lovely, vibrant. One of the colors that I do struggle a little bit is mixing orange. Getting that really, really vibrant orange can be tricky. But there we go. That pops a lot more against that. So need that to dry now. You don't want that line. So if you fiddle a lot with your watercolors, so if you keep moving your brush, what tends to happen is your paint collects at the edge like that. So just look out for that. Be aware of that. And then you don't want to have lines, too much water. Another thing is, so there, can you see I've got a line here? So this is not on purpose, that there isn't meant to be a line there. So transparent pyrrole lifts quite nicely, but just watch out for your paint collecting on those edges like that. It's very frustrating. And if it happens, you're generally fiddling too much. There we go. Let's just soften. I'm just going to leave that now. Okay, so what are we doing here? So this flower has this big white area, but it is a lot. It's a very big white area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just create a little dent in it. Just a slight little dent in there. Just there, just very, very, very lightly. Just to, here we go, just to, because we want the white. Just a little bit like that. Here we go. I always think of painting and drawing as sort of sculpting. You get this blank piece of paper and you make something that is ideally three-dimensional. Okay, so where can we go now? Let's have a look, see. I want to just amp up this yellow. I want to connect this yellow into this yellow here. So I'm just going to wet a little bit beyond where I'm going to paint because I don't want a hard line, but I love purple and yellow together. Obviously, they're complementary colors, so they will pop. But I encourage you to play with mixing them together because you really get such beautiful range of colors. So there we go. Just pull that into there. Now this is to Whoopsie daisy. Sorry for the whoopsie daisies. It's my mother
We love
speaking.
it.
You're cute, Whoopsie Daisy.
Yeah, it's my mother, and an English mother. All right, there we go. So go. Just want to soften, soften, soften there. Okay. So I'm just going to leave that there. And I like that playing together. So now I've gone a little bit darker than I wanted to here. So I'm just going to grab my eradicator brush. I'm going to use the big eradicator brush. So it's this size. Just going to soften that out. You can actually use them to create a really beautiful blend. You see how it's just getting that lovely soft edge there because I just want, here we go. You can use these brushes to blend really nicely. Here we go. And then I need to see. Okay. So I want to just work on this area here because this isn't dark enough. So again, I'm going into my cobalt blue and transparent pyrrole orange because I want the desaturated color. If it was cobalt, if you use just, for example, a plain cobalt blue to create a shadow, it's not going to look realistic. Your shadows are always desaturated colors, and you desaturate your color by mixing it with what's opposite on the color wheel. So in the case of blue, you're looking at your browns. Be careful of using orange. I always count your brown counts as an orange because if you've got, for example, a cobalt blue and you add a permanent, so if you look here, this is permanent orange. It's a very yellowy orange. So even though orange and blue are opposite each other, if I was to mix this color with my cobalt blue, I'm going to get a really beautiful green, but I'm not going to get a desaturated. It'll be slightly desaturated, but I'm going to head towards green. So when you mix, my go-to for mixing gray is transparent pyrrole orange or burnt sienna and French ultramarine, but cobalt also works. But just with orange, be very careful. So I just want to create that soft edge there, and it lifts so easily because and then we need to come in here and just drop in there, just create that lovely softness again. This shape comes like that, okay? And then we're going to, oh, has my video frozen?
Yeah, I think it's frozen.
Let me switch back to my screen. There we go. Going to go back to the camera now.
Still frozen.
So frozen.
Okay, so I'm going to turn my camera on and off. All right. So it might go black. Is that a good thing to do?
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay. Give me one sec. It's actually my Zoom screen there we go. Okay. Turn it back on again.
There we go.
Are we there?
Yep.
yeah.
No, my hand it's frozen because I'm moving my hand. I don't know why it's frozen. Oh.
Maybe
Oh,
switch it off completely.
sorry.
Maybe switch it off completely.
I did. I did switch it off. I'm going to try one more time. Let's go.
Okay. But unplug it, I mean.
Oh, unplug it. Sure. Okay, I'm unplugging. Plug. Plug back in. All right, turning back on. Sorry about that, folks.
That happens.
You gotta love technology, right? Okay, it'll come on now, hopefully. Hold thumbs. Mm. Okay, I'm going to just quickly change out the battery. All right.
That is called Murphy's Law, isn't it?
Isn't it just? Okay. Give it 2 seconds. There we go. And
Oh,
there we go.
That is
Okay,
where
we're back. We're back. Okay, so I'm coming over here. So now I'm very happy with what's going on there. And it's also had some time to dry, which is nice. So, you know what I want to do? I want to bring in a little bit more of a, I don't love this. What's going on here? Any cobalt? You see how easy it is to soften your edges. It's such a pleasure to work with. So I'm just going to pull that down there. And I want to bring in a little bit more green here because I've got it here. So I also want to bring it in there. So I'm just going to wet that. I love to play with colors when I'm painting some white animal, anything with white. You can really play. And so let's get in some of this greeny. So the color that I'm going to be using here, it's a combination of Prussian green, cobalt blue, and a little bit of permanent alizarin crimson. So it just gives you that green edge there, and I'm going to add some lemon yellow in, and just to bring in some, just to bring in a little bit of color. And I'm keeping my value really light, letting it sort of soak into that, coming around there. And it just creates a really nice blend between the lilac. Okay.
Gillian, with the time being out, would
Yes,
you be able to post this on like your social
absolutely.
media for us? We'd love to see it when it's done.
I will do. I definitely will do.
It's beautiful.
Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone who has spent time with me tonight.
it's our pleasure, really. We have learned so much.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so glad. I'm just going to go. There we go.
Thank you.
we have
And Rick
countless,
Richards is
countless comments on Facebook. So fantastic.
Thank you so much. Thank
Thank
you. I've
you.
really
Thank you.
enjoyed it.
It's delightful.
Thank you, Jillian.
Look
It was
forward to seeing the finished one.
Thank you, Jillian.
And
Thank
thank
you,
you, everybody.
We love
Bye.
you.
bye.
Thank you very
Bye.
much.
Wonderful weekend, everybody.
Thank you, John.
Thanks. Have a good one. It's freezing here, but I think most of you are. It's warm.
It's pretty more. It's nice.
I'm so cold here. I'm going to go get into bed.
Oh,
Ah.
Okay. Thanks
bye,
so much.
everybody.
Bye.